Going live. Think I'm live now. We'll go for it. Hello there. I'm another Magento dev, and we're live again. It's kind of a weekly thing this now, isn't it? And I enjoy it. So thanks for tuning in. Got a couple of things to sort of talk through today. As always, sort of Magento related. This is a Magento fan channel as much as it is a sort of a dev channel, and obviously with sort of the recent sort of news in the UK, or particularly in the UK with regards to sort of, you know, cost of living crisis, energy crisis, whatever you want to call it, and also the fact that we're very, very likely to go into a recession this winter and into next year. I just wanted to sort of talk about what that might mean for, you know, Magento developers, you know, the people that are providing the service to, you know, develop these applications, these sites, and maintain these sites, and also what it might mean for the types of businesses that are on Magento, and how we're going to sell Magento over the next sort of few months and possibly even years. And I'm speaking from sort of relative experience in that. I ran a Magento agency for around 10 years, and I started it in the last massive financial crisis. Obviously, that's not to say that everyone's situation is identical, but there was some learnings from that, I think, or at least some experience that I took on from that, which is going to stand me in at least enough stead to be able to talk about it and probably advise on what or predict, if you like, what may or what might happen. One of the things that happens usually, to say from the perspective of a client, you know, from the perspective of a client and an agency relationship, or a client and a freelancer even relationship, is that you know, budgets get cut. Oh, by the way, I am going to get into the code in a bit. I am going to get into the code. I don't want to make you feel as if it's just going to be me talking at you. It's not. But I just wanted to say this. I was in the office yesterday, and I was sort of thinking, you know, is this appropriate for a live stream? And I think it is. One of the main things that happens is, you know, clients tighten their belts essentially, and one of the first things to go is their marketing budget. And what does that mean really for Magento developers? Well, I think that we're in quite a safe place if our narrative as an agency, or our narrative as a freelancer, or as a developer, remains with the fact that Magento is a piece of software that requires maintenance, and it's a piece of IT software as well. It's not something frivolous that you could sort of mothball for a while, or stop upgrading, or stop patching, or stop maintaining, particularly from a DevOps perspective. Whereas marketing budgets, you know, the campaign side of things, those things can stop, or budgets can be cut on those, and particularly, you know, clients who are sort of in high risk industries, you know, things that are going to be directly hit by, you know, a financial crisis essentially, or a recession. They're probably going to cut back, they're going to trim the fat on those types of things. But what we've got to do as developers and as people advising these businesses is to say, look, you're not going to be cutting your IT budget. Magento and the service that we provide as agencies and developers is, we are providing a core service to your business, and we've got to convince, or keep convincing clients that that's the case. And how do you do that? Well, it's not a case of sort of barraging in there and sort of saying you will continue to pay us and you will continue to use our service. It's not quite as simple as that, because obviously you are in a competitive market. We all are in a competitive market. You know, there's a lot of Magento developers out there. There's a lot of Magento agencies out there, all performing sort of different levels of service, if you like. So it's not only a thing that's happens in a recession, is that clients hop from one agency to another. Particularly with Magento being open source, you can move around quite frequently, but how do you provide value to a client isn't necessarily going to change within a recession. All that's going to change is the sort of, or possibly, or what could change, what would be dangerous is if a client starts thinking that they can cut budgets or cut or trim expenditure on actually keeping the lights on in terms of Magento and keeping it secure too much, because they might want to cut it a little bit. And that's where we can help as agency people or as developers, is that we can probably start to try, if you like, and provide more value for money, because essentially they're paying for our time, so it's an hourly rate equation, isn't it? You know, what a Magento developer quotes that they can do within 4 hours can vary massively on the individual. It can vary massively on the type of agency they're working. It can vary massively on the type of site that they're maintaining. And I think one of the key word there is transparency. I think we have to be more transparent about what we're doing, more transparent with the client, more transparent with our teams about, you know, it's not necessarily working harder either. This isn't the thing. It's really trying to explain what our value is, and just reiterating what our value is as the people who are experienced in being able to work on this platform. And it's almost like you go back to the thing of, you know, if you're a Magento developer, you're not right all the time. I don't profess to be correct all the time and absolutely correct in every situation, but I'm the best bet. You know, as a person who's experienced of 12 years in software and particularly Magento, I'm your best hope. You know, so it's about being honest and about being transparent with that, I think. So I would say, like, it's a thing where the client needs to understand that it's part of an IT budget. That's got to be reiterated, I think, and almost feel, and it's not like a blunt object to go hit them with. It's a thing, look, can we work together? Because, you know, the recession is going to affect agencies as well, you know, and the energy crisis is going to affect agencies. It's going to affect you know, we're all on a level playing field in terms of the hardship that's possibly going to come. I'm not trying to predict that, you know, bad things here, but you know, it's predicted that we are going to go into recession. So if we are, it's going to hit us. Also, can we work together with clients for us to be able to keep that client as an agency and say, look, we're going to give you more value for money in these ways. We're gonna strive in these ways, and then in the back end of that agency, you've got the developers and you've got the team leaders working out how they can be more efficient and maybe coming up with basically innovation. That's what you want, isn't it? You want innovation to be able to innovative ideas to be able to maximize your productivity. All developers feel great when they're productive, right? So I think it's as much about doing that and working with your clients. And also, I think on the flip side of that, and you know, on the flip side, so one side is I think Magento developers are probably going to be all right, if you like. There's still going to be work for us. Is on the flip side of that is, in my experience anyway, the types of businesses that have Magento sites, I think, are probably more exposed to the recession than maybe your Shopify clients who, you know, sell sort of dropship or sell things that are not necessarily massive warehouse operations, because the majority of my Magento clients are massive warehouse operations, and they chose Magento because of that. And big warehouses take a lot of energy, take a lot of staff, and it's a it's a harder ship to sink, but it's also a difficult ship to keep afloat when you know, seas get stormy. And I think I'll leave it on that fantastic analogy and move on to more interesting things for Magento developers, which is what we are all here for. So, switch screens here. Right then, so in terms of the the code or the thing I want to look at in terms of the code for this live stream, I've been further experimenting with JavaScript and Magento, and I can't remember specifically where I left the last stream in what my decisions is, but I'm sort of doing this in real time. I'm by no means do I have all the answers about the using Svelte, for example, in Magento, but I do have a progression. I do have a bit of a progression that I want to tell you about. I just need to open up my code editor and jump into my project. So yeah, as I say, I do have a bit of progression. So what I've basically done, I think in the last one and the last couple of videos, where I was up to with it was that I was integrating Svelte, or trying to integrate Svelte into a theme or concept of a theme for Magento 2. And I believe I sort of like cracked a few nuts basically there, and sort of got in my head like a good way of doing it, and it probably ain't going to be foolproof. It's probably going to have loads of holes in it, but this is why it's a progression, and this is why I said I'm sort of like I'm not set 100% set on this yet, but I've got a little bit further, and I think one of the things I've come to, and it probably goes back to that sort of thing that I was just saying there about selling Magento, or selling digital in what's going to be probably a few sort of difficult years, is I've struggled recently, or more recently, I say recently, in the last couple of years, to sort of sell the idea of headless to clients, right? No matter how much we kid ourselves that headless is the future, you know, these JavaScript frameworks, your Vues, your Reacts, and these technologies that couple with things like Magento and Shopify and APIs in general, and that Jamstack approach, it is difficult to sell to sort of cold clients who don't know anything about it, right? It's difficult because it's a concept, it's not a thing. You know, Magento is easier to sell because it's a thing, and people trust it because it's there in front of them. They can log into it and they can see everything in one place. I think that's what it boils down to. And obviously we can then extrapolate using the Graphql API to be, or any API in Magento, and be able to say, look, we can make it hyper performant and integrate it with other systems in your business, and using Magento as your core, and you can sort of sell it in that way. But really, it's much easier to gain traction with a client based off the fact that you're going to build them a Magento, a traditional Magento or monolith, you know, something in a theme. So this is where I was starting to sort of play with the idea of, can we integrate a JavaScript framework in a way into a theme that we're not completely chucking everything out, you know, so we're not completely getting rid of Magento, and we're keeping certain aspects, and can we be strategic about where we integrate these frameworks? So, and like I said, I'm using Svelte, and I believe that Svelte is probably the best one. It's the best one I know of for doing this, which is to inject it into certain areas of Magento and keep the rest of Magento, you know, keep the rest. So when I'm talking about like what are the advantages of these frameworks, of Svelte, what is the advantage of Svelte as a compiler? It's minuscule, it's fast, it's nice to work with, it's easy to work with, and there is thousands, if not tens of thousands of developers raring to go on a framework like that. So those are all benefits for me, right? What is the main benefit of Svelte over something like, because you could say that about Vue, and you could say about React as well, the same thing. What is the benefit of Svelte over them? I think it's the fact that it's not a framework with a DOM. I think it's a framework that is a compiled JavaScript file, a bundle, more than a framework, and it can be injected into anywhere. And what that does for me in Magento is, one, you can pick and choose where you can use it in Magento, and two, it makes it not sort of, you know, overpowering or overbearing on that Magento install. And also it gives you a case inside to be able to say, well, why not just, you know, for example, imagine you crack it and you get Vue working as a fully fledged full theme in Magento 2. Why not just do it headless? Why go to the trouble of integrating it in the theme? Because you're having to take everything out to put it in, really. Unless you're using the CDN and you're trying to crowbar it in with Require.js and you're using 7, and then what's the point? What are you really gaining over Knockout? Not much, right? Is overall, let's be honest, not much. But with Svelte, it gives you a reason to be able to just use it in key areas. And when I'm talking about key areas, I'm talking about areas that really need to be performant. And if we really boil it down, the thing we want to impress is page speed, right? And performance, on-page performance. So, what can you do? And what I've done, so without any further, I do go on, don't I? But what I've done is, I've experimented by keeping the theme. So the first thing I've done is I've integrated the header and the footer, and I've got a little bit of an header and a footer working, right? And that can be seen here. Look, so we've got the header, which is Svelte none of this really works at the minute. It's all placeholders, headers and footers, and I'm getting a bit of data through, so I'm getting the logo through, and I'm getting sort of like the copyright line through from the back end, right? So that's my header and a footer. Now this bit in between here, this, and I've gone for a completely different layout because I thought, why not? This is all provided. This is basically taking out, you can see here, look, I'm taking out the product info, basically the full product page, right? And I'm injecting in Svelte here into this component, product info. And I started by just doing the gallery, and then next to the product info main area, and I took both of them out, and I experimented with that. And again, I thought to myself, what's the point, right? So let's try it a different way. So what I landed on, and there's going to be a few ways you can do this, trust me, and you can pick up this code, you can pick up my boilerplate code on GitHub. I'll put a link in the description, and it's on a couple of my other videos. I'd say experiment with this yourself, because excuse me, it's quite good. It is quite good. So what I've ended up with is, in here I've got a Magento catalog theme folder, part of my theme, and all I'm doing here is I'm essentially, and I've experimented getting rid of bits in piecemeal, but basically I'm getting rid of the content block here, and I'm getting rid of a few other things just for experimentation purposes, like the title of the page, the breadcrumbs, and the upsells. And then I am putting in this wrapper here. So I'm putting in this wrapper, and in that wrapper I'm putting in my product info. And what I'm doing here is, and you know what's probably coming, I hope you know what's coming because you're clever people, I'm injecting the data SKU into this, right? And then I'm able to use the Graphql API here, and I've got it on. Obviously, this is going to make some JavaScript developers balk. I will transition it over to a proper API scripts folder and that, but this was for testing. I'm essentially going to my Graphql endpoint, and I'm using the SKU that I'm passing in data here, look, and I'm basically getting what I want from the API, and it's really fast and it's really performant. And when compared with, and these are early tests, and I know there's not as much on the page and stuff like that, but it gives you a good indication, right? So, and this is why in one of my first live streams I was talking about like the home page and getting 100% page speed, and you can get 100% page speed on using the page builder, just managing your content correctly. Yes, you can on desktop, not on a mobile. Mobile's a different story, right? And it is the same with the product page as well, with this page. So this is my other theme, which is pure Magento, and I think it's Luma. And the best I'm getting is like 60, 70 out of that, which is all right, but it's not fantastic. And this is a throttled, you know, this is the average. I reckon you're getting 50 to 60 is average, right? And I think we can all agree on that. Like, even, you know, across the board on your site, it's difficult to make these like mega performant on mobile. This page, by the way, gets 100. This page gets 100 on desktop, right? So that's easy, right? We're not talking about that. But, and there's one I ran earlier. And I ran it earlier on purpose because I know that when I'm doing a live stream, it screws up my processor and it isn't as quick. So I don't get as good results. So, but that isn't cheating. That isn't cheating. I got a 91, right? But guess what? I have had a 97. And the worst thing that I'm still dealing with, which is going to be a simple enough fix if I get some time to go and fix it, is cumulative layout shift. And what that is, basically, because I'm going to the API and I'm getting the image and I'm getting all of this information here, because I'm going to the API, it's giving me these cumulative layout shifts on the bits I'm getting from the API, because it's shifting my content on mobile. And I need to just sort it out with a bit of CSS, to be honest, and I'll be able to, and maybe even some sort of nice placeholders loading in, something like that, which, to be honest, with Svelte is really easy to do, because, and I'll show you why it's easy enough to do, is because you can actually scaffold out your data before you've received your data in this way, look. So you basically can copy it, and you can actually sort of utilize these areas and pass these things into your components, because what I've ended up with is some elements here with all my components. I've got my breadcrumbs sitting in one where I'm getting it from the API and I'm sort of reiterating through them. I've got my description coming through, and I've got it outputting in HTML through that handy little HTML Svelte class. I ain't dealt with the form yet, so I ain't done the add to cart bit yet, but obviously I can do that through the API, absolutely no bother. And I've got my title and I've got my stock, and obviously I'm working through it, I've got my SKU. But what I'm going to be able to do is I am going to be able to get rid of that cumulative layout shift, and it's not on that one, and that is going to boost my score even further. So it is pretty performant, it's pretty good. And other than being pretty performant and pretty good, well, what else is good about it? Well, like I've alluded to, I've got, and I'm going to be honest now, right? I've got people in my team where I work, don't like Magento, they won't work on it. They don't want to be Magento developers. There's probably one person that actually sort of likes it, other than me. And it's really difficult as a team leader to get everyone on board with my Magento projects, particularly ones that are already in motion and they're a bit tatty and they're a bit well devved, shall we say. I think this is going to open the door for basically getting prima donnas to help me out. That's all I can say. It's basically going to help me get prima donnas who love their JavaScript frameworks and they love compiling stuff and they love messing about to work on the Magentos. I'm always going to trick them to work on the Magentos. But that analogy sort of tells you that there is more appetite for this type of development and this type of framework. Now, it isn't bulletproof, is it? Because what happens if I wanted to get an extension, say an Amnesty extension that looks for, like stock alert sign up or something that affects these areas? Well, I'm a bit screwed because I've got rid of everything, haven't I? So it's going to cause me more dev work to be able to retrofit some of the some extensions back into certain areas. But again, that's strategic, innit? You go about it a different way. You to be honest, if it's any sort of extension worth its salt, it's going to have a GraphQL endpoint, so you could probably rebuild certain functionality, and it really and that probably you could sell that in as a benefit to the client. Look, we're going to give you all of the Amnesty, stock alert functionality, but you're going to be able to design it on the front end however the hell you want. I think that's a selling point, and it's only going to cost you a few more hours because we know that developing in these frameworks is faster. It is faster. I don't care what anyone says. Using Tailwind and using Svelte, it's speedier dev. Once you get used to it, you're in there and you're faster. No doubt about it. I have found some issues with utilising other Svelte packages through Webpack rather than Rollup. A lot of the docs don't have docs specific for Webpack and Webpack install, so that's something else to be sort of like aware of. But again, I haven't had time to look into it in depth. I'm sure there is ways just using require that you can still utilise Svelte packages like Svelte image for WebP and stuff like that through Webpack and Compact, because obviously things like that need compiling, and also you want to be able to show your WebP images. There'll be solutions out there for it. So as I say, I want people to sort of see this as a bit of a challenge and go and have a look rather than sort of shooting it down, because I think it's a good way to go. And also I like the fact that we're sort of starting from almost bare bones in Magento 2. With Svelte, it's very bare bones as a framework, and we're sort of building up. And hopefully over the coming weeks, I'm going to be able to figure out, good ways of solving stuff and doing stuff. By no means will I be doing this for a client. Will I be deploying this for a client? What I might do is, if I get something specific where a client asks for some specific functionality, like someone knocks on my door and says, "Do you know what? I hate the Magento cart. Can it be rebuilt?" I might have a go with Svelte and see how we get on with that. So that's where I'm up to. So in terms of the layout and stuff for this page, there is loads of different ways you can do it, but I've mentioned this before. I was using Tailwind UI, and it is a layout off Tailwind UI. I'll show you. So obviously it is paid Tailwind UI, but I think you can use these things just for your own purposes. Like if you keep things locally, you can do what you want, can't you? I was it was a page, this page. So I looked at a few different product overviews, and I basically went for something a bit different. I went for this one. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to see how I can build this area, getting information from GraphQL. I'll just show you what you get as well from GraphQL, and I'll show you something else actually. If you're using Ubuntu, mind you probably got this on. I've just realised that's full screen. But this GraphQL extension is really good. If it loads up for me, let me just make that a bit smaller because I went full screen there by accident. Where is it? Is it going to load? Is it going to load for me? Here we go. Here we go. It's coming on. This is really good, and this enables me to show you what we sort of get from the API. So here's pretty much a full query that I can send. You know, you can basically go for anything, get loads of stuff, everything about the categories it's in, cross sells, upsells, related. You can basically build the entire product page and probably build it better with just the information that comes back from this API. So when I'm going to be going and getting sort of you know, the media gallery, it's all in here. What, you know, all the different types of pricing, you can dictate what types of pricing, you know, how you want to display the pricing. So like it's going to be easier to get this type of layout basically. I don't know if this product is a simple product or a configurable. No, it's a backpack in it. Yeah, I'd have to look at the output for a configurable product. Have we got a configurable product knocking about? It's the same database as this one, so I might just have a quick look and see what we get from the API. Not this one. This one. Oh, by the way, the reason I got this up. So, standard Magento product page, and I've mentioned this in sort of, I think, a webinar a while ago, but so it's about 1,000 lines of code, right, for a standard Magento product page, which is alright, and it probably could be more and could be less depending on what else you've got installed. But for up to now, for my sort of web Svelte version, look, it's only like 195, and it isn't even minified yet. I could minify that and make it even better. So that's like nothing, is it? It's nout. No wonder it's so fast, because it is. It's really fast. Anyway, back to GraphQL. So GraphQL, GraphQL is amazing invention. I love it. In terms of API, if you're into your APIs, you'll be into GraphQL. Let's just have a quick look at what we can do with this. So I'm just gonna bob that off a second, and I'm just gonna talk through. Oh, where are we? Nope. Oh, dear me. Dear me. That was a faux pas, wasn't it? Right. So what can we get from? There we go. Right, it's from here. So let's just find a configurable product, and we'll have a look at what comes back. So you can get a product from SKU. That's the idea basically. You query a SKU, and I'll query this SKU. Let's see how it gives us the information back. Hopefully I'll get everything I need. Right. So basically, this is essentially going to be a query in your software as well. So in your actual application. There we go. So what has it got us that we can use here? So there's loads of good information in the product links. So that's your cross sells and stuff that's been sent. Media gallery. Categories that it's in. Come on, where's the stuff I'm looking for? How do I get a configurable product information? I thought it'd be in here. Yeah, type configurable. Maybe I have to go to a separate endpoint for configurable product information. Let's just do a quick search for something like Excel. No, it's not there, is it? But you should be able to get it. I mean, I'll be able to get it from somewhere. Could look into that. Have a quick look on the. Have a quick look on the docs. So this is where I go to basically, and you get your documentation. and then in here you've got your queries, and it was products I was using. So how do you get product information based off configurable product? Because it didn't seem to be in there. There must be another one. I've never looked into it before. Might be something to do with child products. I don't know what they call it. Yeah, I need to look into that. But yeah, you'll be able to go and get it, and I'm going to do it for the next stream. I'm going to get that working with in that layout, that other layout. So that with that, and see how that goes. And there's some real good ways that you could structure a product page that I've never really even looked at. Like, that's quite a cool one. Could do that as well. For how quickly it takes to sort of get these things up and running as well. It's yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, it's a short one this week. I just wanted to sort of, you know, give a bit of an update, essentially, and hopefully sort of inspire you to, you know, have a look at this framework yourself, have a look at Svelte, and see what can be achieved within Magento. And bit by bit, us guys, the community, drags it forward, because Adobe are never going to do it. Oh, I know they've got PWA Studio, but you want to do it yourself, don't you? Don't want to be using any of that shit. So, and you want to learn stuff. So yeah, so thanks for tuning in, and obviously as well, like and subscribe this video, and check out other videos on my channel which relate to this. You'll be able to find them. And as always, I hope this has been useful, or at least, you know, part useful. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.